Well, let's have a prayer this morning. Donnie, it is good to have you and your family in here. Would you mind coming up and leading us in prayer this morning, brother?
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we just come to you and we thank you, Lord, for bringing us here together safely. And Lord, we just pray that you would open our hearts and our minds to Jim's teaching today, and just, Lord, just bring us back safely again this evening. And we praise you for all things. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Well, thank all of you for helping with the wedding, Dakota's wedding. She came back home from her honeymoon last Friday night and spent their first night in their little house that they built up there to stay in. And last night I asked her if she wanted me to cook her dinner for her. And she said, nope, I do it. So that's being a little wife, isn't she? Anyway, and last weekend we had Ken Blinn. I was looking forward to seeing him here today because he did a Mormonism versus the Bible last Sunday morning. You know, I just turned him loose on you pretty much. He kept apologizing for taking more time and everything, but I was trying to get him to stay up there because it's good. He's a missionary among the Mormons. And they hit that class last week tremendously. My Sunday afternoon classes are the most downloaded classes, by the way, of all the classes that I do from Hebrews and the book of Exodus. And the second ones are usually the Gospel of John on Wednesday night, which we're in the John the 10th chapter, which is fantastic. That's the biggest class I have, is the Gospel of John. And of course, this morning, every Sunday morning, we were in Luke, and we went to the second coming, and so we've been studying the book of Revelation. Last week, the title of my message was The Fall of Lucifer, the fall of Lucifer. And that's where we're going to take off today. We're going to go talk about the fall of Lucifer. We didn't get into that very much. Just 3 verses last week is all I taught about it. And the first 3 verses, and I forgot my notes and everything else was in my other Bible. But that's all right. I think I remember it. Maybe. All right. Revelation 12 and verse 1. Talking about a historical event. And then it says, and I'll read this to you from the Greek, and a sign, a semeion. The word semeion, we got our word sign right out of it. It means something miraculous, something that is not normal. This is a paranormal situation here. A sign great, it was seen in the heaven. In the heaven. And this word here, it is locative, singular, masculine in this heaven, and this is in the first heaven. Remember, around the earth, how many heavens are there? How many heavens are there? 3. Okay. Here's the earth. The first heaven is in the atmosphere. Atmospherae. All right. That's from Greek. Okay. That's where we see things. That's what we can see. We can actually see out into the third heaven. Okay, the first heaven is here, and then the second heaven is where the stars are, and then here is the abode of God, and actually the bottomless pit out here someplace in the third heaven below the earth. But here from the earth you could see a sign in heaven. Okay, a sign in heaven. There was a sign great was seen, and that means to see with your eyes. In the heaven. And then it says a woman. The word gynecologist comes from this one, the gyne. That's what it is in Greek, gyne. A woman having been royally clothed, is what it says. This is a queen. This is a royal person. All right? And the sun and the moon, the Helios and the Selena. Remember that woman named Selena? Remember that word, woman? The Hispanic woman that was called Selena, you know, she was a movie star and the singer and all that kind of stuff. Her name meant moon. Selena means moon. Okay? The sun and the moon underneath of the feet of her. Okay? And upon the head of her a crown of stars 7. Okay, now if you go back to Genesis, the 37th chapter, we find out that this is a dream that Jacob had, remember? Or Israel or Jacob. Jacob means what in the Bible? Jacob in Hebrew. Jacob means what? Jacob means one that trips or one that follows the heel. Someone that grabs on the heel. Because Esau was born, and Esau means what? What does Esau mean in Hebrew? Esau. How many of you remember that? Marilyn? What's Esau mean? No. Yitzchak. What? Harry. Thank you, brother. You got a good memory. His name means Harry. So Esau, his actual name is Harry. That's what his name is Harry. Okay? So when Harry came out, Esau had a hold of his heel. And so they named him one that follows the heel or one that holds on to the heel. All right. And then Esau, or not Esau, but Jacob, God changed his name to Israel. Israel. What does Israel mean? Israel. One who wrestled with God. All right. Not only did he wrestle with God, but he overcame. Jacob was not a panty-waist, some little weak boy. He was a very strong person, a powerful man. And when he wrestled with Jehovah, pre-incarnate Christ, he wouldn't turn loose of him until he blessed him. And Jehovah, or Jesus, crippled his hips, remember. And he was crippled from that time on. But he gave him a new name, he that has that wrestles with God. Now the sun-clothed woman here is Israel. Okay? That's Israel. The 12 stars are what? The 12 tribes of Israel. Let's go on a little bit further. And we have a crown on her head and has 12 stars in it. And then, the woman having, she cries, suffering in great birth pains, and being in extreme distress, about to bear or give birth to a child. How many of you girls had children? Not fun, is it? All right, not at the moment. Anyway, it's a lot of pain, and that's what it's talking about. Now, of all of Israel, Genesis, the 3rd chapter, and verse 15 is the first promise we have of a Messiah in the Bible, isn't it? Okay? And it says a woman shall bring forth a child that shall overcome Satan's child, so to speak. And he'll wrestle him down, and he will deal a death-dealing blow to Satan, or the Antichrist, but he shall receive a suffering blow as to the heel. In other words, he will suffer great pain. In Genesis, the 4th chapter, and verse 1, of course, Eve got pregnant. She brought forth a child, and she thought that child was a Messiah, and she said, I've gotten the man, even the Lord, even Jehovah. And of course, instead of seeing the Messiah, she saw an Antichrist. Basically, one that was an Antichrist, one that was anti-God. That was Cain. And Cain means gotten. Now, the first child she had was a great disappointment to her, and in that child they saw all of their sin brought forth in full fruit. He was a murderer. He was a rebellious against God. He would not follow God's prescription for tithing. He would not follow God's prescription for worship. He would not follow God's prescription for sacrifice. He wanted to do everything his way. And here we have the beginning of false religion in the world with Cain. All right? Now, no descendant of Cain is alive in the world today. I want you to understand that. A lot of people get real mixed up on that. We're back here in the age of conscience. All right? The curse of death was placed upon man right here at this period of time. That's what we're talking about. Here we are over here. The flood came, and what did the flood do? It killed everybody. So all of these people over here, all Cain's descendants, are dead. Now, you want to ask me a question about Cain. Anybody want to ask me a question about Cain? If not, I'm going to ask you a question about Cain. Where did Cain get his wife? Where did Cain get his wife? Brother, it had to be a sister or a cousin or somebody. All right. That's the way it was. Of course, we know that Abraham's wife, Sarah, was his half-sister. So there's no problem. And then he said that he went into the land of Nod. Now, what kind of occupation did Cain have? He was a farmer. And he thought he could really do well, and he had overcome the curse of the ground. How did God curse the ground? Because of what Adam had done. He called thorns and thistles and goat heads and huckleburrs and sandburrs and everything and foxtails and all of this to get on the ground, and careless weed and muletail and nutgrass, everything that causes everybody trouble if you try to grow a garden. Okay? And it's noxious, and it grows better than anything. Well, Cain got out there and said, "Looky here, I have overcome." Not only did Cain do that, but God sent him and banished him to the land of Nod. What does Nod mean in Hebrew? What does Nod mean in Hebrew? The land of what? The land of wandering. But he went over there and he became a wanderer, all right, but he invented slavery. He was the man that invented slavery. Cain was the man that took his other relatives and made slaves out of them and made farm workers out of them. That's what they were. Because that's what he did. All right? So all of these farm workers, these are the first farm workers enslaved, was there by the hand of Cain. Now, so he was a great disappointment to his mother and father, but many years later there would be one woman in Israel, one woman that would be faithful. And her name was Mary. Okay? She was of the right lineage. She was of the right family. And that is the woman that would bring forth the Messiah. Okay? Now it says here that this woman, Israel, and this is talking about Mary. Mary in particular. Mary brings forth the child. And what happens to that child? Isaiah 26:18, Isaiah 66:6-9, Micah 4:9 are all cross-references to this, that she's going to have this child. Okay? And Genesis 3 and verse 15, Genesis 4:1, referencing back to when they thought they had the Messiah. Many places in the Bible. Verse number 3. And then it said, "It was seen another sign in heaven, and behold, a dracon." A dracon. The word dracon there, you can write down Leviathan right there with that if you want to. Leviathan. Because that's what it's talking about, dracon. In the Septuagint, when Aaron threw down his rod, and it became a dracon. That's the word right here. A dracon. A dragon. We got the word dragon right out of it. His rod became a dragon. Jannes and Jambres' rods became dragons. This is the word, okay, right here. Now there's a great dragon, a fiery red dragon. Word Pyros. A fiery red great dragon. Now let's go to Acts the 16th chapter and verse 16. I'm going to show you a case of demon possession in the New Testament. A case of demon possession in the New Testament. Acts 16:16. Who has got that? Young lady, you've got Acts 16:16? Huh? Go over there to Acts 16:16. What kind of translation do you have? That's right after the book of Gospel of John there. Fourth book in the New Testament. Acts 16:16. All right? Come up here. All right. That guy had one, didn't he? All right. Acts 16:16.
And it happened that as we were going to the place of prayer, a certain slave girl having a spirit of divination met us, who was bringing her masters with much profit by fortune telling.
All right, here's a girl in the New Testament. This girl is the fortune teller. She, people would come up to them, and they would give her money, or give her masters money, to tell them where something was found, or what some fortune or whatever was. And it said that this girl had a spirit of divination. What does it say over there in your translations, over there in the column someplace? Does it say anything there about that? You know, over there when it talked about divination? Any of you find that any place? What is that? What's it say over there?
Fortune telling.
Huh? Fortune teller, but what does it say besides that? Say anything else?
She predicted the future.
Pythona. Pythona. And our word python comes from that. Python. So what is a python? It's a great snake. The snake. The snake in the Garden of Eden, the Nahash in the Garden of Eden. Now this girl has the spirit of this snake, or stretch it out a little bit, dracon, or dragon, or Satan. She had the spirit of Satan. One of Satan's spirits, one of his emissaries, was dwelling in this girl and giving her the ability to tell fortunes. That's right. It was a demon. The demon that was possessed and a follower of Satan, or the great Leviathan. Okay? Now, you have to remember, as we're talking about the fall of Lucifer, Revelation 12, 1 through 3 here, the word Lucifer comes from the Latin lucere. Lucere. What does that mean? Lucifer comes from Latin. It doesn't come from Greek. It doesn't come from Hebrew. All right? In Hebrew, it's Hallel. Lucifer means shining one. Hallel means shining one. The name Lucifer that we have comes from the Latin Vulgate. Comes from the Latin Vulgate. It would be Hallel in Hebrew if they brought it over from Hebrew into the English. But the Latin Vulgate says Lucifer. All right? And the Gospel of Luke, his name is Lucifer. Luke is Lucifer. And the name Lucifer or Luke is not a bad name. Lucifer or Luke, even though, I mean, Lucifer, we don't like, how many people you know named Lucifer? You know anybody named Lucifer? How many people you know named Luke? Okay, Luke is the same name. Same thing. Lucifer is Latin. Luke is our English, Greekized form of it. Lukos, or Luke. Okay? And it means shining one. Now, Lucifer at one time was a shining one. Okay? Now, right here it says there was a great sign in heaven, and behold, a dragon, fiery red, having heads 7, and horns 10 upon the heads of him, and 7 diadems. Now, ancient princes had crowns. All of them had crowns. But on the crowns, they would have streamers. How many of you have seen someone like Alexander the Great? Alexander the Great wore a crown, but he had many streamers, many diadems coming from it. And each diadem represented an area that he had conquered. All right? In how many ways does Lucifer or the devil reign in this world today? Huh? He is the God of this world, but just how many ways? According to the book of Job, how many ways has Satan influenced this world?
Different realms.
Different realms. Okay. Let's look about the material realm. How does Lucifer affect the material realm in the world today? Huh? He's what? Yeah, he deceives us, but that's mental realm. How about physical realm? Every great, terrible storm that hits the earth is through Satan. Every disease that plagues mankind is a result of Satan. Go back to the book of Job. You ought to read the book of Job at least once a year. because we have to face this every day. Really. You need to read the book of Job. How many ways did Satan affect Job? What did he do? He affected his monetary welfare. Who's in control of money in the world today? Satan. Comparatively, true religion in the world today, what percent of truth is in the world of religion? Very minuscule compared to false religions. Satan has founded every false religion in the world and every make-believe. Even he'll take people that almost believe the truth and throw in heresy so God cannot get the glory from it, full glory from his churches. He affected it. We live in what church age do we live in today? What's it called? The church age of Laodicea. It comes from laos and dikia, two Greek words. What does laos mean? People justice. People are doing what's right in their own eyes. We think we'll do this. Even God's church is getting some of the wrong ideas because you're getting it from the world. Because Satan has a lot of influence even on God's churches. Every church split, every problem in every one of God's New Testament churches for 2,000 years has been caused by Satan. Every political problem in the world today is caused by Satan. Every nation in the world today has fallen angels over it. Even the nation of Israel is led by godless, God-hating people. Really. They're in rebellion to God. But otherwise they say Jesus is our Messiah. They will 3.5 years into the tribulation period. After they go through the hammer of God's judgment, then 1/3 of them are going to be left. 2/3 going to be dead. Okay? Now, Satan has many diadems, many areas of influence. Monetary. Satan took all of Job's money, didn't he? He took all of his wealth. He took his health. He took his family. Anybody around here ever have some family member killed by some gang or thief member? Any of your family ever been murdered? Anybody you know been murdered? Yeah. You know who's behind all of that? Yeah. Ezekiel 28 talks about this rat. The whole book of Job talks about Lucifer. He's the central character. Basically, we talk about Job, but who's the real central character in the book of Job? Satan, how he deals with us and how he dirty deals and deals underneath the table and how he sneaks into our lives and tries to destroy us. Even when you're sailing high and trying to serve the Lord, he's biting your heels all the time. Biting your heels. Let's go to Ezekiel, the 28th chapter, and look at that quickly. Because here we have a picture of Satan. We have a dual prophecy. Ezekiel 28. Won't spend a lot of time here. 28 and verse 11. 28 and verse 11. Right up here, you have Isaiah 14, and they should have put Ezekiel 28, 11 through 19 up there, but not there, but I wrote it in. All right. And again, the word of the Lord came to me saying, all right, the davar. God lined his words up. That's what the word davar is. The word of Jehovah came to me saying, Son of man, take up a lamentation over the king of Tyre. Now, we've got a dual prophecy, a double prophecy. So, we're going to be talking about the king of Tyre that was in existence at that period of time, but we're going to be talking about something that happened in eternity past. All right? In Genesis 1 and 2, we have the fall of Satan, not in Genesis, the 3rd chapter. We have the fall of Satan in Genesis 1 and 2. which we're going to go back and look at. I mean, a lot of people today think the fall of Satan was in Genesis, the 3rd chapter, but that's not the fall of Satan. Genesis 1 and 2 is fall of Satan. Genesis 1 and 2 is the results of the fall of Satan. Again, the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Son of man, take up a lamentation over the king of Tyre, and say to him, Thus saith Jehovah Elohim, the Lord God. You had a seal of perfection. Now, the king of Tyre didn't, did he? Is this talking about the king of Tyre? We're talking about Lucifer. We're talking about Hillel, the shining one, the one that was over the material realm of God. Okay? Now, when Satan fell, I believe that he took from 3 realms, angels and demons. We have Michael, we have Gabriel, and we have Lucifer. Okay? Lucifer is over the material realm, Michael is over the spiritual realm, and Gabriel is over the what? The mental or informational realm. Okay? Now, some of the angels fell out of Gabriel's realm, some of them fell out of Michael's realm. These here are very powerful and very dangerous. These are the one I believe are in the bottomless pit. And they're going to be turned loose on the earth during the tribulation period. Okay? We're looking at that as we study the book of Revelation. And then in here, angels are material. They can go from dimension to dimension, but they materialize because they have material form. Spirits do not have material form. They seek to dwell in human or animal flesh. Okay? We find that from the Bible. Many places we can't go into all of that, but that's fact. Okay? Now, I believe that 1/3 of Lucifer's fell, 1/3 of Michael's fell, and 1/3 of Gabriel's fell. The evidence of that is Acts 16:16. We have one there out of Gabriel's realm that's dealing with this woman, giving her information. That's the information realm, okay? Material realm, intellectual realm, spiritual realm. The spiritual realm. How do you think Mohammed got all of his ideas? While he was in epileptic seizures, he would have seizures, and when he would wake up, he'd have all this information, and he'd tell people. He was illiterate, but he would tell people what was going on, you know, and they would write it down. Some of them many years later, but they memorized. Do you know that you can memorize the whole book of Quran so easily? You know why? It's demonic. Satan works with these people, all right? Catholicism is a very powerful religion. Catholicism and Islam are like this. And then we have another sister, and that's Mormonism, that we talked about last week. The Bible versus Mormonism. All of them change God. All right? The Catholics changed God to a material God. And they change our intercessor from Jesus to Mary, which came from paganism. All right. Now let's look and see all of this. You have the seal of perfection. God never created anything imperfect. When He created the heavens and the earth, the heaven and the earth were perfect. Genesis 1:1. It's in the perfect tense also. That verb is perfect. It had been created, the heavens and the earth. God doesn't create anything imperfect. The Babylonian idea of creation was that God created a chaos and a muddy, incoherent form. That's not God. That's not God. That's a Babylonian idea of creation. That was something that came in. And that's a Jewish idea, too. You go read the Jewish Publication Society's translation of the Hebrew. It said God began to create the heavens and the earth, and the earth was formless and void. That's not what it says in Hebrew. They better study Hebrew before they start translating it. And you were in Eden, the garden of God. Was the king of Tyre in Eden? No. The king of Tyre wasn't in Eden. Who was in Eden? Do we have evidence of that? Who was in Eden? Satan was. Where can we find that in the Bible? Genesis, the 3rd chapter. Where can we find his destructive qualities? Genesis 1 and 2. And the earth she had become formless and void. And Spirit God suffered and mourned over the faces of the deep and of the waters. Because He was getting ready to put it back together again because Satan had destroyed it. It's going to tell you about that. You were in Eden, the garden of God. Every precious stone was your covering. The earth at one time was covered with beautiful rubies and diamonds and all of this kind of stuff. God, it was all over the earth. When I talked about the Garden of Eden, when I was teaching the book of Genesis, I talked about God's jewelry store. Gold and silver. Look at New Jerusalem. Look at how much jewelry there is in New Jerusalem. The gates are made out of what? Pearls. The ground is paved with gold. Isn't that beautiful? The polished stones. All of the great, most precious stones in the world are part of the foundation of that beautiful city of God. And that's the way the earth was too. And everything became destroyed. And it was scattered all over. That's why people still scratching and digging for gold and diamonds and pearls, and or not pearls, but emeralds and rubies and everything. The ruby and the topaz and the diamond, the beryl, the onyx and the jasper, the lapis, the lazuli, the turquoise, the emerald, and the gold and the workmanship of your settings. All right? Your settings and your sockets. And on the day that you were created, you were prepared. All right? On the day that he was created, he was perfect. And you were the anointed cherub. We know that he is in the cherub, what we call the cherub category of angels. How many angel categories do we have? Somebody name some of them. We got cherubs. Those are the ones that are over the Ark of the Covenant. Satan has wings because he's a cherub. Okay? We know that. He's a cherub. What else? Seraphim, teraphim, and what else? Archangels. Archangels are what? Head angels. Head angels. Those are big boss angels. So evidently Satan is a very powerful, very leader. He's like a 3 or 4 star general in angels. He's a cherub. All right? And he was he had a great voice. A great voice. Now, when we find out that the fallen angels cohabited with women in Genesis, the 6th chapter, if you read the book of Enoch, you'll find out that one of the things that angels brought into mankind was worship, satanic worship, and music. Almost all music that you had in the voices of the angels were beautiful. The voices of the angels are beautiful. I challenge them to sing better than you are, young lady. Good boy, that girl's got a voice. They had beautiful voices. But among mankind, all types of musical instruments were introduced by fallen angels. Now, we can use instruments for the glory of God, but I'll guarantee you the musical instruments are used against the glory of God more than they are for it. In the drug culture, all of that. The cherub who covers, I placed you there, and you were on the holy mountain of God. What's a mountain in the Bible mean? What's the word mountain mean, usually? Remember what that means, David? Mountain? Chris, do you remember what mountain means? Donnie? Government. Government. You were part of the holy government of God. He was a leader. He was a general. He was like a vice president or something. Okay? We have God the president, and we have Lucifer the vice president. He was right there next to God. And you walked in the midst of the stones of fire, right in the throne of God. And you were blameless in your ways. He was without sin, but he had volition. Satan was without sin, but he was sovereign. What does sovereignty mean? God is sovereign, isn't he? God does anything he wants to, and that's how he created. He created by his sovereign will and everything else. But everything that God created, angels and spirits are both sovereign. They can do what they want to. They have a volition. They have freedom of choice. And we find out that 1/3 of the angels fell. 1/3 of the spiritual world fell. But 2/3 of them followed God. Those are the good guys, okay? Those are your guardian angels. And your guardian angels are from the material realm, probably the ones that didn't fall. The 2/3 of the angels in Lucifer's material realm are your guardian angels. One taking care of you, and I've kept them busy all my life. You were blameless in your ways from the day you were created until unrighteousness was found in you. We're not talking about the king of Tyre, we're talking about Lucifer. We're talking about Hillel. By the abundance of your trade. Remember what we said? How many different angles does Satan use in the world today? Commerce, trade, money, influence, politics. You are internally filled with violence. You sin, and therefore I cast you as profane from the mountain of God. He's not part of the mountain of God. He's not part of the covenant of God against. Now he's an antichrist. Now he's an anti-God person. I have destroyed you, O covering cherub, from the midst of the stones of fire. Your heart was lifted up because of your beauty. You corrupted your wisdom by reason of your splendor. I cast you down to the ground. I put you before the king, that they may see you. All right, now let's go to Isaiah 14th chapter. Isaiah 14. And let's look at it again. He's talking about the king of Babylon here. But he's talking more about Lucifer. Lucifer, in Luke the 10th chapter, verses 17 through 20, he talks about Jesus seeing Lucifer fall. That's exactly what he just said in Ezekiel 28. All right? Isaiah 14. Look right up there, 12 through 15. How are you fallen from heaven, O star of the morning? It's Lucifer in the King James, isn't it? O star of the morning, O Hallel, O Lucifer, son of the dawn. You have been cut down to earth. You who have weakened the nations. Did he? You study the book of Daniel and find out how that demon angels, or demon spirits and fallen angels, are over every nation. Have you wondered what the names of some of them might be over Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, Israel, America, China, Korea, Russia? But you said in your heart, I will ascend to heaven. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. The stars of God are who? The angels of God. I want to become stronger than the angels of God. And I will sit on the mount of the assembly, in the recesses of the north. This is where the throne of God is. If you go straight up out of the earth north, way up there in the third heaven, this is where the throne of God is. This is where God has looked down upon man and everything. I ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. Nevertheless, you'll be thrust down to Sheol, to the recesses of the pit. All right. Nevertheless, you will be thrown down to Sheol. Those who see you will gaze upon you, and they will ponder over you, saying, is this the man who made the earth to tremble, who shook its kingdom? You know, when Satan's finally put into the lake of fire, and he's totally in chains, so to speak, at least physically, not physically, at least mentally and spiritually in chains, he will be just like everybody else there. He won't be anything. He's going to be a mud duck in hell. Nothing. Zero. Nothing. Who made the world a wilderness? Genesis 1 and 2. Who made the world a chaos? Who did not allow his prisoners to go home? He controlled all his prisoners. Now, we know that Nebuchadnezzar did that also. And Belshazzar did not allow his prisoners to go home. Now let's go back into the let's go to Luke 10. Luke 10. And verse 17. Luke 10 and 17. And the 70 returned to him, saying, Lord, even the demons are subject to us and to our name. He's talking to the limited commission, his church went out on a limited commission. They came back to him and said, even the demons are subject to us. And he said to them, I was watching Satan fall from heaven like lightning, Isaiah 14:12, and Ezekiel 28. Behold, I've given you authority to tread upon serpents and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy. The power, who is that? The power of the enemy. All the wiles and the powers of Satan. They could overcome them. They could cast out demons. They could stand against fallen angels. Yes. Yes.
I think in the verse to me, Jesus was there and physically saw Satan fall.
That's right. That's right. In his pre-incarnate Christ, Jesus didn't begin in Bethlehem. God became flesh. John 1:14. In the person of Jesus Christ, but that wasn't his beginning, because John 1:1 said he existed forever. He was there in eternity past before anything else was ever created, period. And he created it all. Yes, he was there. Genesis 1 and 2 is the fall of Satan. Okay? Nevertheless, do not rejoice in it that the spirits are subject to you, but rejoice because your names are recorded in heaven. Now go back to Genesis 1. 1. Bill, you don't have your other Bible with you today.
No.
Okay. Genesis 1. You went to the coast and got sick. Genesis 1 and 1 says from Hebrew, in beginnings, Barashith bara, in beginnings, had created God. All right, had created God the heavens and the earth. They were finished. And he didn't create anything in chaos. He didn't create anything in a static, unfulfilled mess. He didn't create a chaos. He didn't create a muddy, formless void. And then it said, and the earth, she became formless and void. And darkness became over the face of the deep. And then it says, and Spirit God kept on mourning over, suffering over the faces of the waters. And then God began to separate the chaos, the disorder, and bring order back to his creation. Now Satan had done this. Now let's go back to Revelation, the 12th chapter, Revelation chapter 12, and verse 3. And another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a great fiery dragon, red dragon, with 7 heads and 10 horns on his heads, and there were 7 diadems. And these are all the powers that Satan uses over the physical world. Okay? All of these things. Like I said, you go back to the book of Job and you'll see all the powers that he has over the material creation of God, and over the spiritual creation of God, and over the mental avenues of communication, and over the money, and over the nations, and over the politics. All I can say today, I'm not very happy with anything. All right, out there in the world. But I can tell you one thing, it's exactly where it's supposed to be, and everybody's in the exact place that they're supposed to be in at this moment to bring about God's eternal purpose, because the end is on its way sooner or later. Okay. And his tail swept away 1/3 of the stars of heaven. Satan. All right. Now this is telling you how many angels and spirits followed him. 1/3. That's this right here. 1/3 of all the angelic and spiritual forces, Satan swept them out of the service of God and into his own private service. And they would worship him because they think that they can overcome God. Do you think that Satan today doesn't think that he can overcome God? Huh? He thinks he's going to win. You talk to somebody that worships Satan, and they say God is getting smaller and Satan's getting bigger. Just look in the world. And when they say that, yeah, Satan's on a long leash right now, but God's going to choke him down. He's on a long leash right now, and he's doing exactly what God says he's going to do. He thinks he's doing what he wants to do. He's doing exactly what God allows him to do. All right? That's all. And his tail swept away a third of the stars of heaven and threw them down to the earth. How did this earth get so destroyed? Genesis 1 and 2, and the earth she became formless and void. How did that happen? Satan. The Catholic Church took a stand, and back in about 500 A.D. Now, everybody before that studied Greek and Hebrew, and they had no problem knowing what happened to Genesis 1 and 2, Ezekiel 28, Isaiah 14, and any of this kind of stuff. They have no confusion about that. But a man by the name of Augustine came up, and he began to say, that's not what happened here. That's not what happened here. You know? And he began to say that God began to create the earth originally in Genesis, the first chapter, and it was stages of creation. And he borrowed from the idea of the Babylonian idea of creation, and he enforced it into the Catholic Church, and the Catholic Church tried to push that down everybody's throat for many hundreds of years. They banned the Bible to be written in Greek and Hebrew, or to be distributed, and of course that brought on the Dark Ages and all reality, ignorance and everything. They didn't want anybody to know what the Bible said. And then we have a renaissance of Bible languages starting in about the 1500s. And people began to study and find out that what Augustine said and what the Catholic Church, of course the Baptists were always out there teaching the same thing all the time. They never did change. But they're a very minuscule part of the religious world, aren't they? All through ages. Satan's big bunch and then little minuscule truths. Yeah, they had to hide. Okay. And the tail swept a third of the stars of heaven and threw them down to earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth, so that when she gave birth he might devour the child. Now, the first child that the first woman gave birth to was a devil, Cain. He was a rat. His name meant gotten. We have gotten even the Lord. They called him Jehovah. He's the Lord. We got him. Here he is. The one who shall become. Jehovah means one who shall become. What a disappointment. But then the real Messiah was born. And when the real Messiah was born in Bethlehem, 4,000 years later, a lot of disappointments for 4,000 years. But when he was born, then what happens? Satan's going to do what? He's going to try to kill him. So what happened? We had a man on the throne of Israel by the name of Herod, that was a descendant of Esau, not Jacob. And there was some magi, which magi, our word magistrates come that they were rulers from the east. They came there, and how many of them were we've got tradition says 3 of them, but there could have been 300 or 3,000. There was a whole emissary of these people that came to Jerusalem. And of course Jerusalem was the head. That's where the seat of Israel was, in Jerusalem. So they came there to the palace looking for the king to be born. Because the book of Daniel told them exactly the time it was supposed to happen. The book of Daniel told them exactly the time that the Messiah would ride into Israel on his triumphant entry. The very day. Well, they showed up, and old Herod said, where is he? Get the scribes, get the Levites, get them come in here. Where's the Messiah supposed to be born? Now, these are the same people that were alive when Jesus was in his ministry, some of them. All right? And so they said, where is he going to be born? They said, in Bethlehem. So, all right, he's going to be born in Bethlehem. You go over there in Bethlehem, and you see if you can find him. And when you find him, come back and tell me, and I'll go worship him too, which he was going to go murder him. And then we have the slaying of the innocents. When he couldn't find him, there was at least 50 to 200 baby boys from 1 year to 2 years old killed in Bethlehem, so he could try to kill the Messiah. This all happened in history. You can study it in history. A third of the stars, and then he tried to destroy the Messiah when he's born. And she gave birth to a son, an heir, a male child. This is the fulfillment of Genesis 3:15, who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up to God, to his throne. All right. The word caught up there means raptured, snatched up. Okay? Snatched up. Now, Jesus, originally, where did he go when Gabriel warned Joseph, where did he go? Where did he go? The Bible said this would happen, by the way. He said, my son will go down to Egypt. He went down into Egypt. And then an angel appeared to Joseph again and said, go back. By the way, what was literally now, no baloney, no Catholicism here. I want to know what Joseph's job description was. What was he? What was he? What was his trade? He wasn't a carpenter. What was he? He was a stonemason. Guess what they were doing down in Egypt all the time? Making big rocks and little rocks. And building things all the time. So he went down there and he became a builder, a stonemason. And all the terms that Jesus ever uses or anything about these are stonemason terms. Okay? Everything. The rock, which the builders rejected. The cornerstone. All of these terms, Jesus said, you are a small chip off of a big stone, but upon this gigantic rock, foundation rock, cornerstone, I will be building my church, and the gates of hell shall not wrestle her down, will not be able to tear this building down. Okay? So he went down into Egypt. He tried to devour the child, tried to kill the child. And this child, this male child, who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. Revelation, the 19th chapter, where we're going sooner or later. And her child was caught up to God and to his throne. When was Jesus taken up? When he went down before he went up, didn't he? What happened when Jesus was crucified on the cross of Calvary? He died. His spirit went to what? Sheol. His spirit went to Sheol. His soul went to Sheol. And he preached down there and he said, I have died on the cross of Calvary for you. Now, part of your redemption, part of your salvation is a physical fulfillment. When I raise from the grave, it will be finished. And then, 3.5 days later, he was raised. And then, after 40 days with his church, he was taken up to heaven and caught up to the throne of God, where he is there to this very day. All right. Now let's go on a little bit more. We got about 3 minutes left, and I'll turn you loose on the world. And a woman fled into the wilderness, where that place had been prepared by God, so that there she might be nourished for 1,260 days. That's 3.5 years. Now, what happened? We went from one subject to another subject, didn't we? We went from one subject to another subject completely. We go into little parenthetical statements, and that what we just read was parenthetical statement. The whole 12th chapter, part of that first part was a parenthetical statement. It explained what happened in eternity past. It explained how the earth was destroyed. It explained how Satan is a ruler and has many streamers of diadems over many realms in the world, but one of these days it's going to be cut off. He's going to be cut off and he's going to be chained. Now we come back into the tribulation period. Now we go from eternity past, Isaiah 14, Ezekiel 28, and Genesis 1 and 1 and Genesis 1 and 2, and now we come over here past the church age, and now we're over here in the middle of the tribulation period. What a jump in time. So we're over here right in the middle of the tribulation period. Now God's going to protect Israel again. Israel is on the outs with God right now. But God is going to put the hammer on them. He's going to put Israel's head on an anvil and allow Satan to beat it up real good. But before he kills her and totally destroys all of them, he's going to save a remnant. And that remnant, look what happened here. When Israel would not listen, as Brother Abe said, they didn't hear. They didn't have a receiver. They didn't want to have a receiver. They would not hear that Jesus was the King and the Messiah. So they were dispersed. And a whole lot of them ended up in Germany. Basically, they were controlling all the purse strings of Germany. They had all the banking system. Matter of fact, almost all of Europe. How many have ever heard of the Rothschilds? What have you heard of the Rothschilds? Huh? Yeah. One time here a while back, public television did a documentary on the Rothschild family. How they